Hey everyone, welcome back to Switch Top. 2026 is shaping up to be an absolutely insane year for Nintendo fans. We've got games coming to both the Switch and the Switch 2 that are going to blow your mind. I've been digging through all the announcements, leaks, and trailers, and I'm genuinely hyped for what's coming. So, let's count down the top 15 games that are going to shock everyone this year. Let's get into it. Pokémon Champions is shaping up as one of the most unexpected Nintendo Switch and Switch 2 releases of 2026. With a clear focus on pure competitive battling rather than traditional RPG exploration. Designed as a battle-first experience, the game centers on turn-based Pokémon fights with full strategic depth, supporting ranked, casual, and private online modes in both 1 vs 1 and 2 vs 2 formats. Core mechanics from across generations are present, including Mega Evolution, Z-moves, Dynamax, and Terastallization, allowing players to build teams around different playstyles instead of being locked to a single system. Team building is handled through a dedicated recruitment and training system, where Pokémon can be unlocked or tested and then upgraded using victory points earned through battles. Integration with Pokémon Home also lets players bring in Pokémon they already own. Rather than a traditional story campaign, Pokémon Champions positions itself as a global competitive hub, designed to support official tournaments and high-level play. The game is scheduled to launch in 2026 on Nintendo Switch, Nintendo Switch 2, and mobile platforms, aiming to redefine how Pokémon competitive battles are played going forward.
More flexible and convenient than ever. Teach your Pokémon moves that interest you, then train your Pokémon to make the most of them. Recruit and train to easily enjoy Pokémon battling. Bringing Pokémon battles to everyone. Pokémon Champion.
Pragmata is Capcom's ambitious sci-fi action-adventure, set to release on April 24th, 2026, and it's confirmed for Nintendo Switch 2 alongside other platforms, making it one of the most unexpected additions to the Switch ecosystem. The game takes place on a lonely, high-tech lunar research station in the near future, where a mysterious disaster has left the facility under the control of a hostile AI. You play as Hugh, a human explorer, accompanied by Diana, an advanced android who plays a key role in both gameplay and story. Combat blends third-person shooting, agile movement using thrusters, and a distinctive real-time hacking system handled by Diana, where grid-based puzzles are used mid-battle to break enemy defenses and create openings. This creates a constant push and pull between action and strategy, forcing players to think while under pressure rather than relying on reflexes alone. Story progression focuses on the evolving bond between Hugh and Diana, environmental storytelling, and uncovering the truth behind the lunar AI, giving Pragmata a slower, more atmospheric tone that sets it apart from typical action games and makes it a standout title for 2026.
Got it!
Reanimal is an upcoming survival horror adventure from Tarsier Studios, set to release on February 13th, 2026, and confirmed for Nintendo Switch 2, positioning it as one of the most unsettling games coming to the platform. The game follows a brother and sister returning to their island home, only to find it twisted into a nightmarish place filled with grotesque creatures and disturbing environments. Gameplay focuses on cinematic platforming, environmental puzzles, and stealth-based survival, where avoiding danger is often smarter than confronting it directly. You control both characters, either solo with AI support or in cooperative play, and progression depends heavily on coordination, timing, and smart use of the environment. As you explore, you'll unlock new areas, including traveling by boat to reach previously inaccessible locations, gradually revealing the island's dark secrets and the fate of missing friends. Much like Tarsier's previous work, the horror is driven by atmosphere rather than combat, but Reanimal leans into a darker, more grounded tone, making exploration tense and emotionally heavy, and setting it apart as a bold horror experience for Switch 2 in 2026. The Adventures of Elliot, The Millennium Tales, is an upcoming HD 2D action RPG from Square Enix, scheduled to release in 2026 and confirmed for Nintendo Switch 2, where it's expected to stand out thanks to its mix of classic presentation and modern mechanics. The game is set on the dangerous continent of Philadelphia, where humanity survives behind protective walls, and follows Elliot, a young adventurer sent beyond them to explore ancient ruins and uncover long-buried secrets. Gameplay is built around real-time combat, moving away from turn-based systems and letting players freely switch between 7 weapon types, each offering different ranges, speeds, and tactical uses, further enhanced through upgrade materials. Exploration and combat are closely tied to Faye, a fairy companion who supports Elliot by assisting with movement, item collection, puzzle solving, and combat abilities, and can even be controlled by a second player in co-op. The story gradually expands into a time-spanning journey after the discovery of a mysterious gateway, blending action-focused gameplay with a narrative centered on history, exploration, and the long-term fate of the world, making it one of the most promising Switch 2 RPGs of 2026.
You can control both Elliot and Faye separately, or 2 players can control them at the same time. You'll find that she's very helpful on your adventure. Join Elliot and Faye on a grand journey.
DECAPOLICE is Level 5's upcoming crime suspense action RPG, currently scheduled for release in 2026 and confirmed for Nintendo Switch, with expectations of strong compatibility with Switch 2. The game is set in a modern, crime-filled city where players take on the role of Harvard, a young rookie detective navigating a society shaped by advanced technology. Gameplay blends open-area exploration, investigation, and RPG elements, focusing less on constant combat and more on gathering clues, analyzing evidence, and solving cases. A key twist comes from the game's dual-world structure, where investigations unfold across both the real city and a virtual space, allowing players to track criminals, reconstruct events, and uncover hidden truths using futuristic tools. While full combat details remain limited, the core loop emphasizes deduction, narrative choices, and progression through cases, gradually revealing a larger conspiracy tied to the city's underworld. With its anime-styled presentation, detective-driven structure, and strong narrative focus, DECAPOLICE stands out as a different kind of RPG for 2026, aiming to surprise Switch and Switch 2 players with a slower, more thoughtful take on action and storytelling.
始末じゃない逮捕でしょ。ほう敵もやるじゃないか。ハーバードそんなに落ち着いてる場合一応興奮はしている悪党をぶちのめす興奮だ負けてられないおとなしく捕まるんだこれで
Fallout 4 Anniversary Edition is the definitive version of Bethesda's open-world post-apocalyptic RPG, scheduled to release in 2026 on Nintendo Switch 2, marking the series' first full mainline entry on a Nintendo home console. The game includes the complete base experience along with all major expansions, delivering the full Commonwealth in one package. You play as the sole survivor, emerging from a vault after nuclear devastation to explore a vast, reactive world shaped by player choice. Gameplay blends first and third-person combat, RPG progression through the Spatial system, perk customization, crafting, and deep settlement building, allowing different playstyles focused on combat, stealth, diplomacy, or exploration. The story centers on survival, identity, and faction conflict, as your search for your missing child gradually pulls you into power struggles between groups like the Brotherhood of Steel and the Institute. The Anniversary Edition also enhances the experience with technical improvements, quality of life updates, and expanded creation content, making exploration, combat, and customization smoother on modern hardware.
It's the end of the world, all over again.
Yakuza Kiwami 3 and Dark Ties is an action-adventure remake bundle scheduled to release on February 12, 2026, and confirmed for Nintendo Switch 2, bringing one of Sega's most story-driven series to the platform in a big way. The package includes a fully rebuilt version of Yakuza 3, retelling Kazuma Kiryu's story as he tries to protect an orphanage in Okinawa while being pulled back into violent power struggles within the Tokyo Yakuza world. Gameplay sticks to the series' core formula of real-time beat-em-up combat, blending brutal street fights with grapples, counters, and heat actions, alongside open city exploration packed with side quests and minigames. The companion title, Dark Ties, expands the narrative by focusing on Yoshitaka Mine, offering a darker perspective on the criminal underworld and introducing a more aggressive fighting style with arena-style challenges. Together, both experiences balance emotional storytelling, refined combat mechanics, and dense urban environments, making this bundle a strong contender to shock Switch and Switch 2 players in 2026. Pokemon Pokopia is an unexpected Pokemon spin-off set to release on March 5th, 2026, exclusively for Nintendo Switch, and it completely shifts the series toward a life simulation and sandbox experience. Instead of playing a trainer, you control Ditto, transformed into a human, who awakens in a ruined land and sets out to rebuild it into a peaceful home for Pokemon. Gameplay focuses on exploration, crafting, farming, and construction, with progression tied to how you interact with and befriend Pokemon, rather than battling them constantly. Each Pokemon contributes unique abilities to world interaction, such as growing plants, watering crops, clearing obstacles, or gathering materials, turning team building into a practical, creative system instead of a combat-driven one. As you restore the environment, new Pokemon arrive, biomes expand, and the world evolves through a day and night cycle, reinforcing a slow, cozy sense of progression. Story elements take a lighter, more reflective approach, emphasizing coexistence and rebuilding rather than rivalry, making Pokemon Pokopia one of the most surprising and refreshing Pokemon releases planned for 2026 on Switch 2.
May teach you their signature moves. Use the moves you learn to refresh the land. Clear paths, till fields, grow vegetables, and more. Expanding the places you can visit and what you can achieve.
The Duskbloods is a dark action RPG with a strong multiplayer focus from Software, scheduled to release in 2026 as a Nintendo Switch 2 exclusive, and it stands out as one of the studio's most surprising projects to date. Instead of a purely single-player structure, the game is built around PvP/VE matches that drop up to 8 players into hostile, gothic environments where they must fight dangerous enemies while also competing against each other to secure powerful objectives tied to the mysterious concept of First Blood. Players choose from a roster of blood-sworn characters, each defined by distinct weapons, movement styles, and blood-based abilities that encourage different roles such as aggression, control, or ambush tactics. Combat retains From Software's deliberate, high-risk feel, but is adapted for multiplayer tension through dynamic events, evolving objectives, and shifting threats during each match. Between battles, progression and customization take place in a hub, allowing players to refine builds and strategies. Backed by grim lore centered on corrupted blood and humanity's decline, the Duskbloods blends Souls-like atmosphere with competitive design, making it one of the boldest and most talked-about Switch 2 games planned for 2026. Splatoon Raiders is an upcoming Nintendo Switch 2 exclusive, scheduled for release in 2026, and it represents a major shift for the franchise as its first true spin-off. Instead of focusing on competitive multiplayer, the game leans into a more story-driven, single-player adventure set on the remote and mysterious Spirulite Islands. You play as a mechanic who becomes stranded after an accident and teams up with Deep Cut, Fry, Shiver, and Big Man to investigate strange phenomena spreading across the archipelago. Gameplay is expected to emphasize exploration, progression, and narrative discovery, reworking familiar Splatoon tools and ink-based mechanics for traversal, problem-solving, and encounters rather than traditional turf wars. While Nintendo has yet to fully detail combat systems, early information suggests a slower, more atmospheric pace with a stronger focus on world-building and mystery. The story centers on uncovering what's wrong with the islands and how it connects to the wider Splatoon universe, giving longtime fans a fresh perspective on its world. With its experimental structure and narrative focus, Splatoon Raiders is shaping up to be one of the most unexpected and bold Switch 2 titles of 2026. Fire Emblem: Fortune's Weave is the next mainline entry in Nintendo's tactical RPG series, scheduled to release in 2026 as a major Nintendo Switch 2 exclusive. The game returns to classic turn-based, grid-based strategy combat, where careful positioning, weapon advantages, unit classes, and terrain control define every battle, while refining modern mechanics introduced in recent entries. Combat includes familiar systems like combat arts, gambits, and crests, alongside new mechanics such as blaze arts, powerful high-risk abilities that consume HP in exchange for decisive effects, adding another layer of strategic decision-making. The story revolves around the Heroic Games, a grand tournament organized by the enigmatic Divine Sovereign, drawing warriors from across the continent who fight not just for victory, but for personal wishes tied to fate, ambition, and survival. As the tournament unfolds, political tension, hidden agendas, and character-driven conflicts gradually surface, shaping alliances and rivalries. With new unit classes, deeper character interactions, and a narrative built around destiny and choice, Fire Emblem, Fortune's Weave aims to balance traditional Fire Emblem strategy with fresh ideas, positioning it as one of the most impactful Switch 2 releases of 2026.
It is imperative that I face it again. I must cull it with this blade. My full strength.
There's a man I hate so much that simply killing him will not satisfy.
007 First Light is a cinematic, third-person action-adventure from IO Interactive, set to release on May 27, 2026, and confirmed for Nintendo Switch 2, bringing James Bond back to games with a modern, story-driven approach. The game tells an original origin story, following a younger, unrefined James Bond at the start of his career as he earns his 00 status within MI6, focusing on espionage rather than nostalgia-driven retelling. Gameplay blends stealth, tactical gunplay, close-quarters combat, and gadget-based problem-solving, giving players the freedom to approach missions quietly, aggressively, or with classic spy finesse. Levels are built around infiltration, social stealth, and investigation, encouraging observation, planning, and adaptation instead of constant action. Gadgets play a key role, supporting traversal, distractions, and silent takedowns, while combat remains grounded and deliberate. The story leans into political tension, high-stakes intelligence work, and Bond's personal growth, offering a more human take on the character. With its focus on choice, pacing, and cinematic presentation, 007 First Light aims to stand out as one of the most surprising and mature Switch 2 titles arriving in 2026.
Coffee machine. I hope I'm not interrupting anything.
You're not, Damien Mead.
Bond. James Bond.
If 009 slips through our fingers, we're the last line of defense.
Monster Hunter Stories 3: Twisted Reflection is Capcom's next turn-based RPG in the Stories subseries, scheduled to release on March 13, 2026, and confirmed for Nintendo Switch 2, making it one of the most anticipated RPGs of the year. Unlike the mainline Monster Hunter titles, the game puts you in the role of a rider, focusing on exploration, bonding, and strategy rather than real-time hunting. Gameplay revolves around turn-based battles built on the familiar rock-paper-scissors attack system, combined with monster bonding, gene customization, and team synergy as you hatch, raise, and fight alongside your monsties. The story is set across the rival nations of Azuria and Vermeil, both threatened by a spreading disaster known as the Crystal Encroachment, which disrupts ecosystems and drives monsters into chaos. Central to the narrative are twin Rathalos, whose mysterious connection to the crisis pulls the player into a conflict mixing political tension, environmental themes, and personal responsibility. With expanded environments, deeper monster customization, and a stronger narrative focus, Twisted Reflection aims to push the story's formula further while remaining accessible, positioning it as a standout Switch 2 RPG for 2026.
Careful. Yes.
Dragon Quest VII Reimagined is a fully rebuilt version of the classic JRPG set to release on February 5, 2026, and confirmed for Nintendo Switch 2, positioning it as one of the most ambitious remakes Square Enix has planned for the platform. The story follows a young hero from the quiet island of Estard, whose discovery of the mysterious Shrine of Mysteries pulls him and his companions into the distant past, where entire lands have been erased from history by a hidden evil. Gameplay stays true to the series' roots with traditional turn-based combat, but modernizes the experience through smoother pacing, quality of life improvements, faster battles, and refined vocation class systems that reward experimentation and long-term progression. Exploration is a major focus, as players travel between past and present timelines to restore lost regions, solve environmental puzzles, and witness how their actions reshape the world. Visually, the game adopts a reimagined diorama-style presentation inspired by Akira Toriyama's designs, giving the world more depth and charm while preserving its identity. Resident Evil Requiem is the 9th mainline entry in Capcom's survival horror series, set to release on February 27, 2026, and confirmed for Nintendo Switch 2, marking a major return to the franchise's darkest roots. The game revisits the devastated remains of Raccoon City, telling a new story through 2 playable protagonists with contrasting playstyles. Grace Ashcroft, an FBI analyst, represents the classic survival horror side of the experience, with limited resources, heightened tension, puzzle solving, and a strong focus on psychological fear and vulnerability. In contrast, Leon S. Kennedy delivers a more action-oriented approach, featuring refined gunplay, parries, evasive movement, and combo-based combat, creating a deliberate balance between dread and controlled power. Gameplay blends exploration, inventory management, environmental puzzles, and enemy encounters, while allowing players to switch between first-person and third-person perspectives to tailor the horror experience. The story gradually uncovers new truths about the aftermath of Raccoon City and lingering bioorganic threats, using atmosphere and pacing rather than constant action.
Think I want a second opinion.
So there you have it, the top 15 Nintendo Switch and Switch 2 games that are going to absolutely shock everyone in 2026. Which game are you most hyped for? Let me know in the comments below. And if you enjoyed this video, make sure to hit that like button and subscribe to Switch Top for more Nintendo content. Thanks for watching, and I'll catch you in the next one.